Welcome to another episode of First Step, where we get industry professionals, leaders in their field, to share with us the steps they took to get them to where they are today. And with us, we have a special guest. This would be my first overseas foreign connection. But he is one who has been close to my family. And he is here to share with us today. We have with us Stephen Hankey, who is the founder and creative director of Island Reflections Dance and Theater Company in Hartford, Connecticut. I hope I got that right, Steve.
Yes, you did.
Oh, thank you very much. And he also is a teacher as well in the arts. And he is here to share with us his journey from his humble beginnings to take him to where he is today. Steve, how are you? And how has life been in the midst of all of this COVID-19 situation?
Well, I'm blessed and I give God all glory and praise because without Him, I cannot do anything.
Indeed.
So, Jehovah God gets all the blessing. And so nice being with you today, Arian. And I'm happy that we could connect on this level to
Yeah,
talk about my journey.
so I'm really, really, really honored. And I took well, my mom actually, she established the connection for me because I was reaching out and saying, I want people, I need people to interview, and she said, well, talk to Steve because, well, that's what we call you. That's how we knew you growing up. And but it really is a pleasure. So I really want to start now to get an idea of you and where you would have come from, coming up from Trinidad in the arts, in Best Village, teaching in Trinidad, dancing, traveling to France, all of that. So I'm trying to get your story from the grassroots beginning.
Right. So my introduction into dance all started at Arang was junior secondary.
Right.
So growing up in MI Trace and being close to Arang was junior sec. So there's where I used to go play basketball in the evening. So we would train there, and then you had the Sikoro Best Village group would come in and they would rehearse. So I would stay back in the evening and look at the rehearsal.
Right.
And one day the choreographer came in a bit late, and so the dancers were going through the paces, and they forgot some movements, and I'm like, no, that's not what comes next. And so one of the guys says, well, why don't you come and join? And I was like, went home. It was a Tuesday. I went home, didn't give it any thought.
Mm-hmm.
And after rehearsal or basketball training the next day, which was the Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, here I am. I already had my sweat clothes and I started to dance.
Wow.
And that's how I started my journey of dance with El Sikoro Best Village Group. Well, that was a bit shocking for a lot of people because at that time I wasn't really much involved in the performing arts because I
Right.
was very introverted.
Okay.
And so going into that dance room really unshackled or opened a lot of doors from
Right.
that.
Right.
So started with El Sikoro Best Village Group. The artistic director was Londa Ayres. She
Okay.
was a teacher and she was the artistic director at that point for the El Sikoro Best Village. So during some training, she looked at me and says, "My God, I think you got a lot of potential."
Right.
And she says, I'm going to take you to the Hummingbird Dance Theater Company with Cyril Francis St. Louis, who was the artistic director. He was also the curriculum officer of dance,
Right.
and he had his own studio, Woodford Street in
In
Port
Port
of
Spain.
Spain.
Right.
So there she took me one Saturday and I went in and well, at that time man is a gem in any dance company because you don't see much men in dance. So he
Right.
was like, okay, you're gonna start and I'm gonna put you in the intermediate class and then you would take the company class after. So I had back-to-back classes.
Wow.
At that time, I was a student at Baratieri Senior Comprehensive. I was in my senior year
Right.
once I started. So for me, starting, it was a bit late for a lot of people in dance,
Right.
but not relatively late for a lot of guys. Men normally, that's around the teenage year that they normally join into a lot of companies and then push through.
Right.
So that's how I got that start, and I began to dance with the Hummingbird Dance Theater Company. That would have been in like around 1980.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
right. No,
Because
79, around 79. Yeah,
so
1979.
how long, so you being in Aranguez, starting off being exposed to the dance in Aranguez junior seconds in junior sec and dancing with them, how long before your then teacher decided to introduce you to Mr. Cyril at the Hummingbird School? How long were you dancing there before you went across?
That was just a few months.
Are
So
you
I guess she would
serious?
have seen something in me that I didn't see myself, and I took the ride. And I think why too is that my father was such of like so what I'm gonna call it, like the security guard. So going into Port of Spain was a big thing at 16. I'm like, oh yeah, then I'm gonna get to go on my own to Port of Spain, get on the bus.
Right.
So it was a good venture, and also it was excited because I just gravitated towards the dance. So once I started the dance, then I stopped playing basketball, and my concentration was just on
Strictly
dance.
dance.
So that's what. So it wasn't like a year. It was like a few months before going off to the formal training with Cyril St. Louis.
Okay.
Mind you, Cyril St. Louis, he was also a graduate from NYU. So he
Oh,
had his BA and MFA in dance
right.
from NYU.
Okay.
So I got a lot of formal training from the Hummingbird Dance Theater.
Wow. So in terms of you finding this, as like you found your calling by accident, I would say, or serendipity. You know, faith just had it that you needed to be playing basketball. Prior to that, were you ever expressive in dance, or you just the average guy? You know, you hear a song, you might dance here and there.
No, I wasn't. And that's what I'm saying. This was just like a lot of people started to look, oh, he's dancing, or he's, because I was so introverted. I mean, I played sport and that was it. You down in El Sicoro, like with your dad, there was soccer,
Right.
with football and cricket, and then I did track and field with
Right.
El Sicoro Central, and with even when I went to Aranguez Junior Sec, I ran for my school. So that was it. But dancing was never something that I did. My mom danced and they move, and with any sort of like social gathering with the family, I would say, "Oh, leave me at home." So I would be home. So this
Right.
was really a new phase for a lot of
Wow.
for me.
Well, but I guess out of that you saw it was able to open you, and I guess you were able to blossom then in terms of personality through dance. As you said, the change
Yes.
just wow.
Yeah, I would say that dance has really, I went from introverted to extroverted because, again, you had to be on stage,
Right.
and then the character building. Dance treats with a lot of emotions, and then you're dealing with I mean, it's good for anybody to release whatever energy or those pent up energy, because you can find your authentic voice in
Yeah.
that room.
Yeah.
It's because you're there in your head,
Yeah.
and based on what the choreographer asks for, then you have to do. And it's an escape route in a way, or I would say a lot of therapy, very therapeutic.
Wow. Wow.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean I have never been formally exposed to the arts, and I'm not the best dancer, honestly, because I would go a party. I love freeing up, but I don't have the, I have never had formal training, right? However, in terms of you being able to grasp find the courage now, as you said, because now you have to present yourself, you know, in performing. How difficult was that for you to do? I guess training is one thing and practicing is one thing, but when you had to now show.
Right. So transitioning was quite easy for me in a way, because my memory, I think I had such a photographic memory.
Oh,
And so my dance teacher, even Cyril St. Louis, would have like always looked to me and said, "Big boy, what's the next movement? Or what did I do yesterday?" When
right,
some other of my classmates would try to modify the movement. And I said, "No, that's not what." So I'm a stickler for following details and
right, right,
sticking to what it is. So that, I'm very organized. And
right,
so
right,
that's what had me working in that capacity of not feeling scared, because I went through the whole training. I know my movement, and then I felt comfortable
right.
of going through the motion on stage and executing.
Wow. So how long? So you know at Hummingbird Dance Academy. I hope I got that right.
Dance theater company.
Dance Theater Company, right, in Woodbrook. What was the next move out of that? Did you stay with them for a while, or did you?
Yes, so I did my formal training. So as I said, I get there within 79, 80.
Right,
And then by 1982, we had a international tour.
right,
So we came to New York.
right,
As I said, he was a graduate of NYU. So we came and we performed at Lincoln Center and United Nations. So we had a trip. And I was on that tour in 1982. We came and we performed, and then we came back and then been doing my training. We had our annual performances at Queen's Hall. And so I would go through those motion. We would have done a lot of like when there's national holidays, or like when the Queen was visiting, we would do performances for those kind of outreach programming.
right,
And since Cyril was a curriculum officer at the Ministry of Education, um, he would have gone off to various schools and trained. And he sort of pulled me on like a mentor, and I would go with him and work in various elementary and secondary schools teaching dance.
right.
So that was where that sort of training then sprung up into my whole idea for teaching and becoming a dance teacher.
Oh,
But teaching has always been a passion of mine. So, the essential question as a child when they ask, "What would you like to become when you grow old?" And I
yeah,
said, "A teacher or a
right,
banker."
right,
Well, I never became a banker, but I have taught
right, right,
all my life.
right,
So that's where I sort of like make sure I looked at everything, take the notes, have a detail,
right.
understand the whole concepts, and so teaching has always been something that I wanted to do.
In
And
terms
once that happened,
of,
then my next step there, and we had Sonny Selena, who was a top limbo dancer in Trinidad and Tobago.
right,
He came to Cyril St. Louis and to choreograph a piece. Then he took us, and then he said, I and a few other of the guys, and we went to Tonapuna Best Village Group. We
okay,
performed there, and then from there went off now to Malik Folk Performing Company. Whilst I was still with the Hummingbird Dance Theater Company, so would have done those.
right. So
And then,
you were Malik.
as fate would have it, once I developed a bit, then one of the curriculum officers within the what is called it. Um, we have so much ministries.
Ministry of
Ministry
Education.
of Culture,
Oh, okay.
Ministry of Culture, right. So one of the Burnett sisters, there were June Burnett and Gloria Burnett. So she saw me and she said, "Okay, I would like you to come back and teach for El Socorro Best Village." So there's where I first got that started of going back to El Socorro Best Village. And I taught them 1 year. And then from there, I went to Grandi.
Wow.
I then moved up to Maracas Bay. So I taught Las Cuevas West Village. I choreograph, I direct, and I produced that performance. In the first year that I brought out Las Cuevas West Village Company, they came sixth in the national competition. We tied
Right.
with Malik Folk Performing Company. And then when I went from there, I went to Grand River. I taught at Grand River,
Right.
way up there.
Yeah.
They were in the concert folk category, and they came third. I directed that show, did the choreography, came third, and then I also with Malik Folk Performing Company, I've also been one of the dance directors there and spearhead with Northern Fullerton and did a lot of work with Malik before coming to America.
Because I mean, for those who may not know, I mean, that would probably be the young ones. But Best Village was like was a huge deal here, in like in the well, when I was coming up, in the 80s and all of that,
Hmm.
and that was something that everybody was like tuned into, and I had exposure from being around, because you would always come through by Tantivero at the time, and we would have had most, well, my formative years would have been around Tantivero and Sawan on MI Trace,
Hmm.
and you would come in from time to time, and I knew you would you I'm not too sure if you were training then at the Aranguez secondary, because I remember going across there. I don't know if it was through you or through like Annette and Tandy Vera going across to the junior sec, or this to while they were training, So I know Best Village was a big deal, and I grew up around Best Village. But how much of a role you think that played in your development, then, to help you then take you into the next stage of your career and your life?
Well, Best Village for me, that was the stepping stone. That was the catalyst to catapult this sort of creative way within me. So I would not say anything that will not include the Best Village, because
Right,
Best Village is where it started. A
right,
lot of people sometimes move on and then they never talk about where they came from.
right.
And
Acknowledge
so,
the root, yeah.
whether I did formal training in dance, I would always remember El Seguro, starting at El Seguro Best Village,
Right.
and the programming of Best Village, what it has done for a lot of people in the performing arts in Trinidad and Tobago. So kudos to all those who went before, and Joyce Wanson, who formed this, and all the teachers who I have gone through with in the Best Village, and the villages that I even taught,
Right.
and ignite that kind of spark for other students who would have had that same love or passion for the dance like I did.
In terms of your meticulousness and your attention to detail, how much of that personality trait you think helped you to kind of make all the connections and move from one point to the next, and be ready for the next stage, like in your life
I,
and
right. So yeah, that sort of eye for detail has really led me into working with a lot of people like directors. So I've been with I was a member of the National Dance Theatre Company when we first formed the National Dance Company. I think it was 1992 for Carifesta 5. So I was one of those first founding members within the National Dance Theatre Company. Then Carol LaChapelle took me over to work with Trinidad Theatre Workshop. So
right,
I've worked with the Trinidad Theatre Workshop. I have done work with Kalaloo Company with Peter Minshaw.
right.
I have done and so that sort of helped branch me into a lot of other areas. So from dance into theater, and so that helped. And I have choreographed a lot of work with Tony Hall, who recently is
Passed away.
um, passed. So I've worked with Tony Hall in the Normandy, and with Christine Johnston with the Baggers Company. I've done a lot of work with her and toured
Good
with
friend of mine,
Christine.
actually. Yeah.
So those things have led me, and I really, have been a student of my craft. I took time off to learn and to understand and to make sure that I make the right connection with what dance is and about. So Cyril St. Louis as well. he saw also in me what Londa saw.
Right.
And he was like, big boy, you can really teach, but I want you to go through the teaching system first before you go into that. So he would always encourage that kind of, training and
And
for me to
systematic.
develop
Right.
in that area.
Right.
So when he passed and his goddaughter got with his house and the studio was still there, I then rented out that space and I started my company there, the Island Reflection
Right.
company.
Right.
And so I started to teach there as well. And then before coming to the US.
So, um, in terms of because so far, I mean, you're speaking of, it sounds very like systematic, and I'm assuming that is how you normally operate. Very systematic in the things that you do. What do you think would be a drawbacks then? Because if is there something like your kryptonite then that you really that you probably needed to tweak in that journey as you were moving forward that you probably didn't address when going in?
No, I don't think there's anything to tweak because I work by faith. For
Wow.
I walk by faith and not by sight.
Right.
And so every step I've made, and I like the full platform for this discussion. First step, every step I made is through faith and believing in myself.
Right.
You know, and so I don't want to be like nobody, and so I wanted to craft my own step. And first, I knew I wanted to teach,
Right.
so I took all the information that I needed to, like, okay, for instance, when my dance teacher would say, okay, this is the girls section, so guys, you can sit. I did not sit down. I learned even the girls sections
Right.
because I knew I wanted to teach, and mostly there are girls in the dance.
Dance.
So
Right.
you can't say this is
To know
boys
it.
step, girls step. So I needed to do that. So I don't think I had any setback um, in my walk. I think my walk has been what it is, and I am here in America today because Professor Reggio, who is a professor here at Trinity College in Hartford, which Tony Hall was also a faculty member of, and they
Oh.
had these exchange programs
Right.
that they would come to Trinidad.
Yes.
And so we were doing Red House Fire Fire. That was one of Tony's Hall production.
Right.
And so I was choreographing the piece, and there, of course, people come in, and I have an open door policy. I know what I want, and I'm teaching, and I'm not
Right.
thinking or studying who is there.
Right.
And after I was finished teaching, she came up to me, Professor Ridge, and said, oh my God, you can teach. I've never seen anybody really broke down the folk like that and the detail and the way you taught. She
Right.
says, I'm going to submit your name to the City Center Churches, which is a organization here in Hartford, Connecticut, to do an exchange program. And that was in 1999.
Right. So, so,
So
so I'm trying to catch it straight. At that time, you were still in Trinidad.
yes, I was in
Right.
Trinidad.
Right. Good.
So I was in
You went
Trinidad.
over there for an exchange program, or they
Yes, so
invited
we
you?
were at Normandy Hotel. There's where we
Right.
were doing
Okay.
the training for the production.
Right.
So we were doing that production for Norman Under the Trees.
Right.
That
Okay.
they normally had those
Yeah.
carnival
Tony's
production.
production. Right. Yeah.
Yes, Tony Hall's production. So she submitted my name, and so I left, and I'm saying, people come down, they see you, and they always like dangle this candy, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
You're the mama guy. Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not taking that on. So I'm
Right.
going my way, and in less than a month, I got this letter. Oh, we would invite you to this exchange program with the city center churches,
Right.
and I'm like, wow, okay. So she lived up to her word,
Right.
and so in 1999, in July, I came on this summer exchange program,
Right.
and whilst I was here, then two other companies wanted me to come and do a summer program with them. So I went off. I didn't come on that mission. I came for
Right.
the city center churches, but other people wanted me. And I think
Right.
Val Coleman, who is with the cultural dance troupe of the West Indies, here in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
She remembered me at Malik Folk Performance because they had an exchange program and they came down. And Malik, when we have those students come in, they would always come to Malik. We were right on the Eastern Main Road
Right.
by the Jumbie Bridge area.
Yeah.
And so there is where we had the viewing for these students. So
Right.
she saw me and remembered and said, "Oh, now that you're here, I would like you to come and teach some of the summer program." And
Right.
I went off. I taught the summer program. Then she says, "Oh, can I would like to offer you I would like to offer you a teaching arrangement here and sponsor you."
Wow.
And so at that time, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is really what it is." Because I was at Samuel Secondary Comprehensive working there.
Right.
And so I was like, "Oh my God, I've been traveling all over and here, maybe this is the opportunity." So I said, "Okay, no problem.
And you try to be
I'll do
cool.
that."
Yeah.
And so the next year in 2000, in 2000, the exchange program came up again. I came up and I taught. And then I went back in 2001. And then my paper started to process
Oh, wow.
through the company.
Yeah.
And so I end up teaching here. Whilst I was teaching there, uh, I said, "You know what? I need to take some classes for myself because I'm
Right.
teaching. I need to do some refresher courses.
Right.
And so I want to go take some classes." And there was an invitation of classes at the University of Hartford, close to where I was.
Right.
And they were offering these classes. So I went and I took the sign up for the class, and they didn't have the class I wanted to do. So then they had flamenco. So I said, "Okay, I like
Right. That dance I like.
Spanish
Right.
influenced
Spanish
dances.
dance. Right.
So I'm going to get it there." So whilst I took those classes, now they would send me correspondence. So I got these brochures advertising the BFA program. And I said, "Oh my God, yeah, this is an opportunity for me to get to do my dance teaching degree."
Right.
And so one day I just got up and I said, "I'm going to call." So I called in to the director and I say who I am. And I said, "Well, I have been looking forward to doing my BFA in dance for the longest while."
Right.
And she says, "Okay, well, when can we conference?" She said, "Wednesday." And I went into Wednesday, and as I said, I walked by faith and not by sight.
Right.
When I walked down that hallway, she didn't know who I was, and I didn't know, but she just thought, "This is him." And she was like, "Oh my God!" And he's tall too. He's tall, and she was like, "Okay." So put me sit down. I had the conference,
Right.
and she looked at my resume. She said, "Oh my God, you have traveled a lot and you have done, a lot of work. So having this degree gonna put you in good stead." As a black man, one coming from the Caribbean
Right.
with all that background, you would do so well in this program. She said, "But good news." She says, "Next week is audition. And so I'm going to waive the accept the application fee for
Right.
you,
Right.
and you're going to come in. And if you come on that day, the we're going to have financial aid people who are going to be there
Right.
on this." So I said, "Okay." I went home and I started to do my training, because she told me it's going to be ballet for an hour and a half, and then you're going to do men's work, and then 1 hour of modern dance. So
Right.
I know I didn't do ballet for quite a while, so I went and I started go through in my own living room on the
Oh,
radiator. I put my foot and I did my whole bow work. So
but I
went,
didn't even know you had training in ballet as well. At
yes.
least exposure to
So
it.
when so I did that and I went in for the interview, and I did all that, the interview, I did the audition.
Right.
And so that was December. And by January, I got my letter stating that, "Oh, congratulations, you have now gotten a 90% scholarship at the University of Hartford, private
Wow.
university." And I'm like, "Wow." So I went off and I told the artistic director who had invited me over. sponsored me. So
Right.
she was like, oh, that's going to be a conflict of interest. And I said, how is that going to be a conflict of interest? I am here sitting in the day, waiting to come at your company to teach in the evening.
Right.
That's not developing anybody in this way. And further to which, I'm going to be teaching dance. I'm going to be
Right.
taking dance
Dance.
classes,
Right.
which is only going to help your company. So I said, nobody's going to deter me. I'm going to do this here because it
Right.
doesn't affect her time. So by the next week, I got another letter stating, congratulations, more good news. You have now obtained a full scholarship. So I ended up with a full scholarship at the University of Hartford. That was over $44,000 a year. And so I had 4 years. After my second year, the tuition went up a bit, 2%. So it ended up like 46,000. So my advisor said, don't worry, Stephen, we got you. We're going to find the money to cover the difference. And so I did my 4 years from 2002 to 2006, and I graduated with my BFA in dance teaching from the University of Hartford.
Wow.
And from there, I went straight into teaching at a high school
Right.
here in Bloomfield, Connecticut. I taught for 3 years, and then they wanted certification with the state.
Okay.
And so I had to go to do the praxis and get all that together. And now I moved off from 3 years after teaching in Bloomfield, and I am now teaching at Cooperative Arts and Humanities Magnet High School in New Haven, Connecticut. It's 45 minutes from where I
Live.
live,
Okay.
but it worth it because it's a performing arts high school.
Oh, okay.
So whilst I was there doing my DISA to get my certification, because one, dance is on the curriculum here in Connecticut. And so to
Right.
teach dance at the high school level or even middle school, you must be certified with the state.
Okay.
So I had to go
As a
through.
teacher. Oh,
Yes, so I had to, just like a math or English teacher,
teacher. Right.
you're
Okay.
qualified just the same. So I
Okay.
had to go through that. So I had a few curriculum courses that I had to do. So I signed up to take that at CCSU, which is Central Connecticut State University. I went off to take that class and I'm like, oh my God, I took this class already. Why am I doing this? But it's the state requirement, so I tried to, fulfill that requirement. And whilst I was there, the professor said, Stephen, you can teach a course here. And so whilst I'm taking a class there, I started teaching at Central Connecticut State University,
Right.
and there is where I am now from 2011, and I'm still teaching. Tomorrow is my first class.
Wow.
I teach modern dance.
Uh huh.
I teach Afro Caribbean dance and culture, which I piloted that program and
Okay.
developed
Right.
that course, and I also teach principles of choreography.
Wow.
So here is where I'm at from
So,
that walk.
I'm trying to determine now because so far this thing sung like a fairy tale, right? So now I need to see some kind of real world because I don't think life would always be glitz and glamour and a smooth ride. Were there any points on your journey where you started realizing that there's a struggle and you had to kind of work through some difficulties and all that?
Right. Well, coming here and with being sponsored here with the cultural dance group, I that's my obligation towards. So
Right.
that whole idea of when the artistic director felt it was a conflict of
Conflict.
interest,
Right.
I was like, oh no. So that was a kind of bit problematic.
Right.
And then of course the whole payment thing. I had to, some days you being paid and some days you're not. And
Right.
so they were trying to figure that out. But again, those things are always there to make you climb and get stronger.
Right.
I did not allow that to impede my growth. I kept the focus. I kept my focus. Those things gonna come in your way. And like anybody else, I could have given up and say, you know what, I'm going back. Even when I left Trinidad, I knew a lot of people would say, oh, he's gonna come back in the
Back.
next
Right.
year or whatever. And I'm like, no, there's no giving up. Oh, and also on that note,
Uh,
so when my director at the University of Hartford, Peggy Lyman, who was a dance student with a principal dancer with the Martha Graham Dance Theater Company, which is
Okay.
one of America's top modern dance companies.
Right.
She was my director. She said, Stephen, even if you cannot stay on campus to fulfill the scholarship is always there for you can come back. And I said, quitting is not an option. This is not happening.
Right.
I am going to go through my 4 years here.
Right.
And once I graduated, then my director then um, wanted me to go to FSU, Florida State
State
University, which I
University.
did
Right.
apply to do my master's in performance and choreography.
Right.
But again, I was contracted with the cultural dance troupe. So couldn't take that opportunity. And sometimes I look back and say, I should have taken that opportunity and said, okay, you know what? Give me a sabbatical. I'm going to go fulfill
Yes.
that.
Right.
And also, there was a job lineup for me at Douglas Anderson High School in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh,
But
okay.
I try not to regret those things because being here in Hartford has produced a lot of things for me. The
Right.
kind of work I have done with a cultural dance troupe, and then after after 12 years, she was like, okay, so I'm not going to renew the contract. And so I said, well, then if you're not going to renew the contract, then there's no need for me being here. And I
Right.
took up my bag and I walked through the back door. And then I saw all the dancers coming behind me. And I'm like, where are you all going? Stephen, but you came here and you brought us to this level because
Wow.
we have produced work that was performed at the Bushnell Theater. The Bushnell Theater is one of the top companies or theater company here in Hartford,
Right.
even in our state.
Okay.
And so to produce work on that stage is a big thing. A lot of other companies haven't produced anything on that stage. So
Right.
being with a cultural dance company to do that kind of work has really been great for me.
Because
So
uh
that has been some of the little setback. But as again, I said I did not allow that to push me
to
anyway further from what I believe in and where I know I needed to do.
because a lot of times people I guess personalities would be one thing as well, and some of it would take some courage, some of it would take some confidence, you know. But a lot of times people would encounter situations where, you know, oh gosh, boy, this is pressure, you know, pressure, I can't take it. And you go back to your comfort zone, then, you know, you go
Right.
back to the safe place now. You know,
Hmm.
if all else fails, I could go back here and I good here. How you just had it in your head that this is the mission and it has to be accomplished.
Yes, this is the mission, and there is where I need to go.
Right.
So my philosophy. So I'm glad you said that because when I came up with that, I was like, wow. I remember we were going with Trinidad Theater Workshop. I was going to Holland on a tour.
Right.
And then from there, when I came back, then I went to Ireland to do a summer program with the Exile Theater. And we had to write this whole resume and this philosophy. And I said, like, man was not born to stay at the same level. You must see growth and development in anything you do.
Wow.
So that if you're a janitor and you cleaning the floor, at some point you want to elevate yourself to become even the supervisor,
Right.
or to walk in that same into that same role
Yeah, yeah.
and going higher and higher and higher. So you must seek growth and development. I don't believe in stagnation and staying one way. I like to see growth and development, and that's not all about having money. It's
Right.
about even being comfortable and good in what you do.
I got you.
So I feel very good about my walk and where I'm at, and still looking to see what I can do. So like, I sign up and I'm going to do maybe another master in a master's in education because I said I'm not going to do anything again in dance.
Right.
I already in, so
Yeah.
let me do something in education.
Because I all right, so now you coming from MI Trace, Trini
Hmm.
boy, not even breaking a leg or shaking a leg initially,
Mm-hmm.
and to becoming um, such a trailblazer for dance in not just Trinidad but in the U.S. And what then, in terms of you becoming setting up your own theater now, your own company, how did that go? So because I remember you said you were leaving from the contractual arrangement you had, and the dancers themselves said, well, we're going with you. Was that the grounds to start your own thing?
Yes. So that, because then I look back and I said, as a teacher, you fail if you can see continuity in your student. So when once the students like leave, and I'm like, I cannot just leave them to go by the way. So I have to do something. And that's how I end up forming in 2012 the Island Reflections Dance Theater Company.
Oh,
So yeah, so that's all. Before in Trinidad, it was Reflections Dance Company, and
right,
all I did when I came here put Island Reflections Dance Theater Company.
right.
And so this is my 8th year of having the company, and I have a junior company, students from as young as 3 years
Wow.
in my school. Um, so that's how I end up, and this is my 8th year, and I have put on a production for them every year since then. It's
Wow.
only this year was supposed to be America the Brave. I since I conceptualized that since the year before.
Yeah, and
So
then
now with all what's happening, I'm like, oh my God, because my production last year was a Caribbean Paradise.
right.
So I talk about all the Caribbean things, and I had the kids learn the whole cultural differences, and work on that production. And then this year was supposed to be American the Brave. We
Oh,
have
God.
gone through the training, but we haven't yet put it on stage. So
Oh, okay.
that's
Okay.
coming once this pandemic has
Eases up.
gone where it needs to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And but this also allowed me some clarity, some time to think and reflect,
Oh, so my,
and
yeah, me as well. Yeah,
so I am not going to like say, oh, what's happening here now. It's
yeah.
new ways of thinking.
Indeed.
Like I had to start to do Zoom classes and
Right,
then figuring it out.
right, right.
And it's a new way of teaching because dance is more tactile, it's kinesthetic.
Yeah,
And so you have different learners in your class. And so the kid who need that touch or guidance
right.
don't
Not
have it,
necessarily
but
benefit
then
from it.
we
Right.
still have to be safe and
Hmm.
find new innovative ways of dealing with that. So
Wow,
that's how I formed the Island Reflection Dance Theater Company.
that's very cool. A question though: do you think, had you not gone on to do Tony's production in Normandy, and then being exposed to the lady from is it the Trinity
Trinity
body?
College, Professor Reggio.
Right. Do you think, could you envision yourself in Trinidad and where you would have been?
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to go back because I was thinking about that recently. Where
Yeah.
would I have been? I'm like, okay, this would have been like at Sandwich Secondary Comprehensive if I had stayed on there or gone on to something else. This would have been because I started to teach there in what's it, 1990. So this would have been 30 years, maybe getting ready for early retirement or something like that, and then saying what's next. I knew I like my folk culture, so I would have been much still part of Malik Folk Performing Company. I don't know in what capacity, but I'm still connected with them. We have the Malik reunion chat. And then I came down, I think it was 2 years ago, and we sort of we celebrated Northern Fullerton, and we had given him some plaques and celebrating his life within the
Nice.
arts. And we sometimes wait when people pass, and then we want to then now celebrate. So we wanted to do that since he was the founder. So I would have been still with Malik Folk Performers Company. And then, well, I knew I always wanted to teach, so I would have still be teaching
Yeah.
maybe in my own dance school.
Yeah. Or you probably might have been lecturing in, because Trinidad now has the university Trinidad University UTT with a big direction in arts, and so who knows.
Yeah, that's what I heard him think. So yeah, and then so I'm glad you brought up that too because I have seen a lot when my dance teacher came back, and not only him, there were a lot of people who came America and studied further in the performing arts, and then came back and because I've seen it, it sort of stay in the back of my mind. This whole idea of who you think you are or what you're playing. And so I couldn't deal with that. I'm gonna be honest. I couldn't deal with coming back and like, oh, who is he playing and whatever. Because I've never been in that. I've always been me, and I've always taught. And if you go anywhere, I have taught in Trinidad, like Grand Revel, Las Cuevas, you're gonna hear one thing. Oh my God, he is serious. He does not play. He get his work done. So
Right.
no way I pass anybody can say, oh, he did not really do what he needed to do.
Supposed
Or
to
he,
do right.
focus has always been, again, as an educator, it's about pushing people and enhancing and facilitating and getting people into that. So I was like, oh, do I really want to go back and do this? And I know it's the brain drain, but I'm still
Exactly.
connected
Yeah.
because Minchell had said to me once I came up here, he says, "Oh God, here we go, we lost another one." We lost another one, and I don't mind coming home and do workshops and do
Right.
things.
Right.
Trinidad would always be my love and that's where I was born and everything else and got my start. So I'm
Right.
not putting that down. It's just that whole mindset
Wow.
of this whole crab in a barrel kind of behavior.
And
I
that's the
can't.
problem we hear all the time, especially for people who would have, and who would have made a name for themselves outside of Trinidad. And we have so many great Trinidadians doing great things outside of Trinidad. You wonder, well, with all this knowledge and exposure, we here in Trinidad should be at a different level, because you all could then come back and share, or set the thing up properly,
Right.
you know.
Because I remember I've been in St. Lucia a lot of time teaching and working. So whilst I was there in one year, I think it was 1998, and I went to choreograph the Hugh and Horror story that Ellen Combs, who was with Trinidad 10 Theatre. Her husband was a doctor and she's Irish. And when I went to Ireland, yes, where I met her, and she came back to St. Lucia to live with her husband and work.
Right.
And so she called me over, and she was doing this, directing this production. And so I went to work with her on that. And so I had done that and came back to Trinidad, and then they were going to perform it for the jazz festival. So they said,
Right.
"Oh, Stephen, we cannot send a ticket for you, but if you want to come, you can come." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to buy a
Oh,
ticket and go." That was my first ticket I've ever bought, leaving Trinidad and Tobago, because I've been on tours and tickets
right.
paid for and everything else. So I went back to see the
So this,
production. And so while they were performing production, here are these scouts from Vancouver. They were doing the movie Creature.
okay.
Creature. So Jaws is the
Yes.
same guy who wrote Jaws, Peter
Right.
Benchley. So they did this Creature. So they were looking around for a choreography. So when they saw the work on stage, it was just like, wow, who did the choreography for this?
Right.
And there I am. Ellen said, here's a choreographer. So then they said, okay. And when I came back to Trinidad, Noble Douglas, the Noble Douglas Dance Company, she was in St. Lucia as well, trying to get the St. Lucia National Dance Company together. And they had asked her if she would do the choreography for this piece, and it
Yeah.
needs to be something folk. And
Right.
she says, no, I'm not versed in the folk, but I know who can do this, Stephen Hankey. So
Right.
then I got this call. I came out from work and I went home and I got this call, and here is okay, this is the director from the Creature film in St. Lucia, and we would like you to come in for an audition. And we want you to choreograph this piece. And I said, no, I'm not going to come in for an audition.
Audition.
You saw my work and you saw my work and you were happy with it. So why am I coming to audition
Right.
then? All right. Okay. So can you come now? Can you come now to St. Lucia? Okay, we're going to send you a ticket. You can go. I said, but if you have money, if the ticket is not there, you can buy it and come and we give you that. And I'm like, it's after 4. That time, it wasn't all this online banking and all
Right.
those things, right?
Right.
So
Right.
banks were already closed. It was after 4,
Right.
but I had some US dollars there. So I took it up and I'm like, oh my God, you're not supposed to really leave the country without telling your superiors that you're
Right.
leaving,
Right.
especially when you're working in government.
Right.
So I'm like, oh my God, okay, this is a chance. You can take this chance. And I went to the airport, the ticket was there,
Mhm.
and I gone off. It was a Thursday, never forget that. And I went in. They took me up, put me up in the hotel. The next day, it said, okay, you're going to meet the director and the producer.
Uh-huh.
Went off on Pigeon Island. Here they're doing this whole taping in the sea. And of course, the pyrotechnic with the shark coming out. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, now I see what it looks like and everything else. So when I went in, the director and the producer said, okay, we on set. So you have to wait till we get off the set because we already filming this piece.
Right.
Once I was finished, they came and they had said, okay, we'd like you to do the voodoo scene in this production. I said, okay.
They
So
wanted you
now,
specifically to do the voodoo scene.
yes, they want me to choreograph the voodoo. There was a
Right.
voodoo scene in it.
Right.
So, um, so I said, okay. So here, this is what happens. So, and I started to outline what it's about. He says, did you see the script? I said, how can I possibly see the script when you all know invite me over? I don't know the script, but
Right.
I
What
know
you
about
need. Right.
I know about my art and
Right.
I know about rituals.
Right.
There's a certain structure and whatever.
Mhm.
He said, that's exactly what we have in the script, the way you describe it. So you're the right person for this. So I'm like, okay. So then he says, all right. I said, how long? I said, give me 5 days. I need 5 days to put it together. So we need to do audition. And then I need about 3 days to put the choreography together. So I know I could do it less
Right.
than that. But
Right.
you never go here. You always expand. And
Extra right. Yeah.
so and so he says, all right. So I left and I came back Trinidad the next day. Of course, they paid me for my time coming with consultancy and everything else. And then they called me and said, well, okay, we would like you to come back on the next Wednesday to do the audition. We're going to fly you out back to Trinidad and we're going to take you back in the next day, the day after. And I
Right.
said, that's not making sense. Why would you take me for the 5 days and I'm coming to do everything? But if that's what you all decide, that's all up to you.
Right.
So I went, I took a drummer with me, Straker, eh, uh, and I went off to St. Lucia. Then I did the audition and I selected the people. So he says, why would it take this amount of time? I said, because I need to educate the natives here about this ritual. In
Right.
Trinidad, this ritual is known, the oration, and so people know that.
Right.
St. Lucia, they're a little more reserved and they don't know. So I have to educate them and then go into training because you don't want anything look a little contrite on stage. You
Right.
want it to look real,
Real.
and therefore they must have a background knowledge of what they're doing. So says, okay, I did that. I selected the people I wanted, and then I came back to Trinidad, and then went back the following week to video to tape
To
the
record. Right.
scene.
Yeah.
Again, I got to consult with the lighting designer, wardrobe, and so there I end up doing this section. Um, he wanted me to bring people from Trinidad, and I said no, I would not do that. That's not what you do in the performing arts. There are
Right.
people here who
Yeah. Use the
in
people.
the arts and you
Yes.
utilize people from that because I wouldn't like somebody come to Trinidad and do that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have to look out for people. Then
Right.
when I look on now that we were doing this and I went back to St. Lucia and we were doing the taping, I said, how much are the natives getting per day on set?
Right.
He says, "Oh, well, we give them 50 EC dollars." I said, "No." I said, "How much is the international rating for a dancer on set?"
Ah,
So he says, "Well, it depends, 100 US to 150, depends on your
right.
scope of work and the body of it." I said, "And you are paying the native 50 EC
50
dollars?"
easy. Right.
I said, "This is absurd." Said, "No, you're gonna do better than that." So he says, "Okay, well, we'll give them 75 US." I said, "Oh, that's better." So you
Right.
come in. So I end up negotiating on the dancer because
Right.
first I'm an artist. I was a dancer before the choreographer and doing that. So I
Exactly.
want
So
to
you're
look
looking out for
out
the
the
art. Yeah.
thing. And so sometimes people do some things that, so you got to really know your work.
Indeed.
I had gone to the ministry and I had asked them what was the international rating. They did not tell me anything. I had to negotiate on my own. Luckily, I did business. I passed
Right.
business,
Right.
PTXE. So I had all my business in it. I mean, a
Right.
astute business person, but then you put it in when you know you have to do it.
Yeah.
And so negotiated that, and we end up doing the production, doing the movie.
Right.
So it's on Sci-Fi Channel, and
Mhm.
they end up using that clip for the opening of the Creature movie.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Look at that.
on that. So that was 1998.
Wow, that's
Yeah, the Creature.
impressive. That is very impressive. So, Steve, I mean, you know what I've come to in listening to you speak, I realize that there's a kind of one thing I picked up is your willingness to just do and open up yourself to experiences. So you, and it just happens that things just keep like it's a domino effect. You did this, and out of this came this, and out of this came that, and out of this came that. So you did the Tony Hall thing. You went to St. Lucia. You choreographed for St. Lucia, and you went and you bought your own ticket to watch the choreography that you did, and in doing that, people for the movie. So it just networking and being open. What do you think would have been the secret there for you?
Well, I always say remaining humble and have that willingness to learn. And so I am happy I'm saying that now because when I was at the University of Hartford in my training, my first year,
Uh-huh.
I was already teaching and I was, oh, so I'm in my class and I'm like, okay, when I got this, I can do this. And my head is working double time.
Right.
And I had to tell myself the next day, be the student. And once I became the student, I began to learn. And so for a lot of people, my mom would have always said, a little learning is a bad thing. Sometimes a little
Learning is a bad
knowledge
thing.
and you
Right.
think you know everything,
Right.
that you need to be humble. And there's always new ways of learning the same thing that you might have learned before. There's always a different way of learning it. And never step in front of things. Always allow yourself to be walking behind that journey.
I got you.
Again, God is in charge.
All the time.
For where He lead me, I would follow. So
Wow.
people always say, "Why Hartford, Connecticut? Why New York City?" I said, "Because I was not sent to New York City."
Ah,
I said, "Everything that happened for me in Open Up More has happened here in Connecticut.
right.
Full scholarship. From there, I'm straight into work teaching. Never out one day out of a job.
Wow.
With the pandemic going on, I'm teaching online. My salary still, and these are things happening. And the next thing that my mother told me is that don't ever do it for the fame. Do it because you have a passion for what you got to do. And if by the chance people acknowledge what you do, then so be it.
Right. Right.
So all those other accolades that I got, and people, I got awards and stuff, was not doing it for
For
that.
that. Right. I
And
got
and still people acknowledge and they understand and
wow.
I do my work.
That's it. That's amazing. So watching the time, and I always have certain questions I want to get from a guest. Right. Um, I'm asking this question, and I feel I already know the answer, but I'm gonna put it out anyway. with the knowledge that you have now, after all of these years in the arts and teaching and everything that you would have done, doing choreography for movies and all of that, is there anything you would have advised that 16, 17-year-old Stephen Hankey to do differently now in hindsight?
Yeah, I would say, as much as being humble, I think taking more risk.
Seriously, I find the
Yeah.
story you tell so far is like you've been taking
I
more.
think, yeah, but I could have still take some more risk.
Okay.
But again, I think maybe our upbringing, that militant thing, and you fall in line,
Yes, I understand.
So, and I think dance is also that. When I look at my work and the skills of dance, to be the dancer, you have to follow the choreographer's lead. You have to listen to the music. You have to be on the count, be on time. So I don't be late for things. I'm on time. So I always tell my students there the discipline of opening up yourself and become vulnerable. Because sometimes you have to feel silly and some, I don't want to do that. Why am I doing this part? But you got to do the part. And so,
Yeah.
but for me, I would think that I could have taken a little more risk.
Wow. That's an interesting response. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, I think I should have taken some more risks.
Wow, because I was thinking, man, you just did it all as it come, you did boom, boom, boom. But that's cool.
No, taking some more risks,
Thanks.
I would say.
All right. And last question, I call it the playbook. So the playbook is the steps that you think are necessary for anyone to achieve their definition of success. So it could be one step, it could be 3 steps, 5 steps, how many ever. So to achieve what it is they want to achieve.
Right. First, and I always think it's about having the passion for what you do. Like I knew I always wanted to teach. So teaching is my passion. And I taught, I've done nothing else. I don't know about bobbing a table. I don't know nothing about those things. And I'm like, no, I'm a teacher. That's who. So my passion. So when you choose your passion, it never feels like work. I don't feel like I go to work or I'm working because it's my passion.
Right.
I am. So the day I have to be motivated, oh my God, time to get up to go do the work is when I need to find myself doing something else. So having the passion,
Right.
being humble and keeping focus.
Nice. That's it.
Yep.
Passion for sure.
Yeah, so I think for me it's a little 3 step.
That's
The
nice.
passion, the passion for it,
Yeah.
remain humble and then be focused.
Yeah. Man, that's as good as you want to get. That's perfect. Perfect. Wow, Stephen Hankey. I want to wrap up now by saying it was a pleasure. It you really share you just shine the whole light on a whole part of history that I really didn't know. I just knew you as Steve, the dancer, doing Best Village, and then left. So I really didn't know all of this, and I was glad that you were able to share, so openly as well, your journey. It was really, really interesting. I enjoyed it very much.
All right. Thank you for having me, Arian. I know it was very conversational and not structured in a sequential manner, but
That's
this
perfect.
is a discussion.
It
So
is,
I am
exactly.
happy and I wish you all the best in future endeavors
Thank
and
you.
give love to your parents for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stay
Thank you.
blessed.
See you too. Take care. Thank you again.
All
Bye.
right. Bye now.